welcome back and happy Tuesday. We are here in Latin America, down in Colombia, and we're going to be talking about the future of tech in Puerto Rico. My guest this week is Jennifer Hopp, who is managing partner of ATO Ventures.
Correct.
So, Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time. And I heard a little bit of your main stage around the future of investment in Latin America, but I'd love from your perspective to understand, why did you choose Puerto Rico?
Right.
Where do you see the biggest opportunities there, and who is ATO?
Yep, absolutely. So it is a little bit interesting that I am doing venture capital from Puerto Rico. I'm actually from Silicon Valley, spent most of my adult life there. That's where all my background in running startups and investing comes from, is in Silicon Valley. But a few years ago, I was invited to come to Puerto Rico to work with some startups that are in an accelerator program there. And at the time, I had just sold my software company, and I was doing a lot of angel investing. Knew I wanted to go into venture capital, but at the time did not plan on starting a fund at all. I was invited to come down and judge a pitch competition there, and it was their first generation in their first accelerator program in Puerto Rico. And so I went down not having a lot of expectations, spent the entire week working with the startups and getting to know them, did a few talks, judged the competition, and was just blown away with the quality of the program, the caliber of the startups. They just did an amazing job. And they were pulling companies mainly from LATAM and US, but all over the world, and obviously in Puerto Rico as well. So I was just so impressed that I kept going back. That was the first generation 3 years ago. And I went back for the second generation and the third generation. They do 2 a year. And by the time I had been going back and forth for about 2 years, I said, forget it. I'm moving to Puerto Rico. I just fell in love with it. The culture, the people. There was so much going on in startup and venture tech. Like I said, when I started going there 3 years ago, there was one accelerator.
Yeah.
We now have 30 co-working spaces, and they're all full, and the startup community is growing. So I decided when I moved down that I needed to do something to contribute. After 26 years in Silicon Valley, what better thing to do than to start a venture capital fund? So I started an early stage venture capital fund. It's based in Puerto Rico. We go in, and as you mentioned, it's called ATO Ventures, which stands for Against the Odds. And we focus on super early stage startups right before they launch, mainly in health, fitness, wellness, and digital media and entertainment. We look globally. Mainly that comes from LATAM and US, and obviously Puerto Rico as well. But we like to try to bring startups to Puerto Rico to incubate and grow because of there's a lot of benefits to doing startups in Puerto Rico.
So that's fascinating. With everything that's been happening from the natural disaster perspective in Puerto Rico, how has that impacted the ecosystem there? The desire, what has that been like?
Yeah, I think the most that it did is it slowed things down for a while. There was a pause in the growth, and now we're seeing hyper growth. So we had already seen a lot of emphasis in the startup and technology communities and some other industries as well, but I focused mainly on tech, so I'll stay focused on that for this conversation. The government had already put laws in place that really attract a lot of investors and startups to the island. It makes it not only capital efficient because you get the same high quality talent that we find in mainland US. In Silicon Valley, New York, our developers are absolutely incredible. The only people that seem to know that are the big companies that steal them away, right? So we have incredible talent there. And now the government has put in place laws that enable you to be incredibly tax efficient and not just capital efficient. So our costs are lower, and now we're not paying taxes on our profits. And so it makes it the only place in the US where you don't pay federal taxes on your income. You don't pay capital gains taxes. So for investors that are making most of their money from equities and startups and securities, you're not paying capital gains taxes to the US anyway, because you're in Puerto Rico. We have this interesting relationship with the US, as you know. But also, in order to attract investors down, the Puerto Rican government said, we're also not going to charge you state taxes, or the equivalent of state taxes, or territory taxes. So you can do your capital gains completely tax-free. So just by coming to the island, if you're an investor especially, your income goes up 30 to 50%, depending on where you're living now.
Well, that is incredible. I'm definitely going to take that as a takeaway quote for this interview, because I think that's something that I feel like I'm pretty well versed in. I didn't know that.
Right.
So it's going to be fascinating. So just last question, as you think about the future of tech and all the areas that you're interested in, what most excites you?
Oh gosh. Okay, so there's a lot of things that excite me, but a little background might be helpful. So I really, like I said, I focus on health, fitness, wellness, and some digital media and entertainment. The digital media and entertainment comes from me working with a lot of creatives when I spend a lot of time in Los Angeles, and so I happen to them. But the health, fitness, wellness comes out of just who I am. Since I was a kid, I've kind of been a biohacker without them calling it that. So where I see a lot of technology is in the health space, but not what you normally hear. I'm really interested in neurotechnology and transformative technology, and this is right now we see it on the cusp of what you're hearing, like wellness applications and meditation, and it's funny because 5 years ago I was one of the same VCs in Silicon Valley that would kind of laugh at people that meditate and be like, you know, this funny stuff, right? But now we've got the data to prove that this stuff works, to prove that it's actually, there's science going on, that the energy in our brains and our bodies and the way we can control our bodies and our minds. It's just incredibly fascinating to me. So from a personal perspective, I spend a lot of time reading and researching this. And I think the technologies that make all of this information and the neuroscience more accessible to the mass market is going to be huge. And we see it already in terms of treating, new ways of treating things like ADHD, treating different like bipolar disorders and things where we used to just slap medications on them, and now we're actually looking at the brain. Go figure, right? We're actually looking at the brain to figure out what's going on. And so I think that there's going to be a lot of new tech in that space.
Super exciting. I'm thrilled to see about what can come out of that, because I think one of the things that is not talked about a lot in our space is health, like psychological health, and that leads to a lot of things that have happened in the United States with addictions in other ways, because it really was never addressed in the beginning. So awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Appreciate you so much being here. And as always, please click the link below to hear more about Jennifer's background, more about what ATO is doing and why they're here. And don't forget to subscribe. Until next week.
Thank you.